Friends, hello again. Welcome to our Lakeshore Ethnic Diversity Alliance community conversation. We started these conversations and will be having them weekly. It is my hope that conversations are taking place within our communities that will help us find common ground and address racial and ethnic inequities that are present in our country. The Lakeshore Ethnic Diversity Alliance, also known as LEDA, can help find common ground. I am Gloria Lara, and I am honored to be the Executive Director of the Lakeshore Ethnic Diversity Alliance. Since 1996, we have focused on dismantling barriers and advancing equity by working to build and sustain more racially and ethnically equitable communities. Our work is done by meeting organizations, educational institutions, middle and high school students, employers and employees, and our communities face to face. My hope is that the barriers and inequities that have come to light in such tragic ways are deliberately addressed in a way that respects all parties. And now I am pleased to introduce our guest for today, Kimberly or Kim Sims.
Hi.
And here is Kim. And so Kim has been involved in local politics in Muskegon Heights and Muskegon County, where she resides. She was formerly on the Councilwoman for Muskegon Heights and most recently mayor. And we'll talk a little bit later on about what she's involved with right now. So welcome, Kim.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity. I look forward to our conversation this afternoon.
Great. So am I. Kim, you've been involved in your local government in Muskegon Heights, Michigan, first as a councilwoman and then as the mayor. Mm-hmm. Can you give us your thoughts on your local experiences, particularly as a Black woman?
Absolutely. And so it was really interesting. I tell people often I got into politics because someone made me mad. And so we were actually trying to build a park over in the South Heights portion of town. And we caught a lot of pushback, if you will, from the council at the time who didn't want us to build that park. And so my mind was, if this is who's serving me, yeah, we got to make a change. And so I ran for office. I was able to serve the community for 12 years as council person. And during that time, the city had come through some really, really challenging times. And so when it came time to decide if I was going to run for mayor or not, it was kind of a no-brainer. I felt like I was the person that needed to take it to the next level. And so in the process of doing that, when I was elected, I was the only Black female elected out of all the city managers and the commissioners and the mayors. So I'm saying that to say when we would have our quarterly meetings of city managers and mayors, I was always excited for the Christmas party because that was the time when the city managers and the mayors, other mayors brought their wives. Other than that, I was the only female in the room and the only Black at that. So it was very challenging. I'm pleased to say that my experience with the managers and the mayors was good. We all agreed to disagree. And I think that's the most healthy way to go about things, realizing we're not going to agree on everything, but being able to walk away from a conversation or a meeting around the table, agreeing that we disagreed and still be good with that. So, I mean, my experience honestly was pretty good as far as things go here in Muskegon County.
Great. So how about statewide? You know, when I know that there's gatherings of mayors and city officials statewide, and you probably found some kindred souls.
Oh, yeah.
People when you went statewide as well.
And so
about that.
That was really one of the most exciting pieces of my leadership. Because Muskegon Heights is a smaller community, our resources are very limited. I worked really hard to try to create networks to weave in and out of, to be able to get information and resources back to my community. And the mayors of Kalamazoo, Lansing, Grand Rapids, and myself, we met every 2 months within one of the cities. And we shared our different experiences and our stories. We were able to help one another. If they knew of a grant or a resource that the city of Muskegon Heights should go after, they were willing to share that information. It's just an amazing, amazing network, and the willingness there to help one another. It was just awesome. I was able to, at the time, serve on the Michigan Municipal League Board. And that was a really good opportunity for more opportunity to network with people and just to glean information. The whole key to it is networking, being able to connect with other people of like-mindedness and bringing it back. And I will tell you that I made some awesome friendships. We talk still often, even though I'm not the mayor. I'm still the little sister, they call me. And it was just, there are bonds there that will be there for a lifetime now. And I'm just really excited about that. When you got on more of a regional level, quite honestly, the further away from home I had to go, the harder it was, because Muskegon Heights, we didn't have the coffers quite as deep. So to attend some of the national mayor's initiatives, I went to one, and that was the one that was in Grand Rapids, right? So it was closer to home. But again, the resources that are out there for mayors was just there. It was phenomenal.
We've seen mayors take very active roles in their communities, particularly during times of stress, but then also during times when things are going well. People sort of tend to think that it runs very smoothly until things happen. Can you elaborate a little bit about that? Any particular challenges that you had that you'd like to discuss when you were mayor?
Oh, absolutely. So, and that's what I often tease people about. I feel like I made this job look real easy. But mayors can tell you there are times when you're pulling your hair out and screaming because you're not sure how this is going to work out. And the one thing that I can most readily remember as mayor was when they were looking at shutting down our school system, because our school was on the top 5% of the shutter list, and having to advocate in that area. It was a completely different space. I needed to be able to understand school law, regulation, and such. And that's one thing about a mayor. You've got to know a whole lot, a little bit in a whole lot of areas. And so I was successful going to Lansing, helped coming up with a plan that was going to save our school systems. We've now operated under that plan for the last 5 years, I believe. So that was one. Another one is the Sherman Street corridor piece, where that money was going to be pulled. And we had $3 million that had been allocated to the improvement of our Sherman Street corridor, which connects. It's the main vein, I call it, in our community. And it connects all the way through up from 31 all the way to the other side. And we needed the funds to do some infrastructure improvement in our community. And so having to advocate for those funds and, meet with different representatives from other municipalities other than just mine, and being able to advocate in that way, we were able to get the funds back. And so the work is now currently being done, but there are some challenging times, and the ones here that we're experiencing as a country right now they're even more challenging. So the things that I had to deal with as the mayor, my hats are off to the mayors that are having to deal through these times now.
Have you ever had to deal with issues similar that are happening now? It's been fairly quiet, I had thought, but I know that Muskegon Heights has had, some issues, and people think that Muskegon Heights is, I don't want to go there. It's a dangerous place.
Absolutely. I tell people all the time, I still walk my dog in this community. I'm good. Do we have bad things that happen in our community? Absolutely. Right? Like most communities do. And so the things that I can remember that were most hard during my time as mayor, honestly, were the shooting deaths of some of the young men in the community. But one of the things that we did was, because I always wanted to understand. I'm a person, I want to understand why and what is it. And we were able to find that some of the crimes that were perpetrated in our community, when we did some data analysis, 90% of those people lived outside of our community and they came here. Why? And so then let's look at this, and how do we create a space where it's not inviting for crime to be? And that was our mission. That's one of the things that we charted out to do. And so when we talk about the things that happen in Muskegon Heights, the people here are they're so loving. It gets done to us. And so that's one of the things that I always really tried to fight. And so there was no secret that when I went into a room, I was representing the underdog, if you will. It was even referred to once, and I took offense to it, I'll admit, as the armpit of the county. But the truth of the matter is, this county is only going to be as good as Muskegon Heights is. And I was fortunate to be able to get enough people around the county to be able to start to grasp and kind of embrace that conversation. And so we could move some things ahead because of that. And so some of the tough conversations are around race and the disproportionate, the systemic racism, those things were brought up, and the conversations had to be had. But because of the relationship throughout the county with many of the leaders, it was tough, but it was had. And so what they're experiencing right now is under my leadership, we didn't have to, but I'm grateful that a lot of the conversations that were had under my leadership has kind of helped forge the way for some reconciliation in the county.
No, that's great. It's I think maybe one of the frustrating things about leadership is that sometimes the efforts that you make don't come to fruition until long after you've departed that particular scene. But you laid that groundwork, which is really, really important, is laying that foundation. Before we go to a completely different topic, do you have anything that you'd like to say to young Black people that are considering running for office or getting involved in their local politics?
Oh, absolutely. You know, it's one of those things, quite honestly, Gloria, where I get chills thinking about it, but a lot of people say, well, I don't want to have anything to do with politics. That's just not me. It has to be you. The reality about where we are right now is everything around us is political in some nature. Every decision that has to be made is political in some nature. And so to be able to understand the mechanisms of it and how it works and understand policy is huge, and how things work as it relates to policy, how things can change as it relates to policy is imperative. So I would definitely just say, young people, it's going to be up to you. It's going to be your generation that is going to bring us on the other side of this current situation. And I'm so proud, quite honestly, because that generation, your generation, is no nonsense. You're not taking it. And so with that no nonsense, I need you to be educated. I need you to empower yourself and understand politics in a way where you understand it affects your everyday living, your day-to-day, your goings and comings. Politics is at the root of it. So I would definitely say, and for any young people, they know I'm all about getting young people engaged. I'm all about empowering the next generation. Like, if we don't figure out in this state how to engage our young people, how to attract them here, and how to retain them here, we're gonna lose. And so I'm really pushing to make sure we get an educated populace of young people ready to take charge and ready to do some things to bring us to the other side of this madness.
Wow, great. Those were really actually very inspiring words, Kim. I certainly hope that young people who hear them, see you, really think deeply about, it is getting to be in their hands.
It's going to be there. Right.
So
And I tell people sometimes, our generation, maybe we fumbled the ball a little bit. And I always let our young people know, I'm so sorry for that. But we've got to pass it off, and it's up to you now. And so I just want to leave this here. Any young people who's interested, I'm always open for conversation and to be able to guide you and give you any knowledge that I have. Okay, you asked about young people, Gloria. Now I gotta.
Well, and it's actually a step towards what you're doing now. I understand that you're now engaged with Public Health of Muskegon County. Can you share your observations and thoughts, particularly as we are still within the COVID-19 pandemic?
Absolutely. So I really believe it was during the time I was still mayor at the time. No, I wasn't mayor. I was on city council, and Muskegon County was allocated a Wellville grant. We had a Wellville initiative. So we were chosen to be one of 5 cities for an initiative called Way to Wellville. And so during that time, I was able to represent Muskegon Heights, and I had the awesome opportunity of being challenged in so many areas as it related to public health work. Quite honestly, it was something that I had never really considered. I knew we had a health department. I knew they had WIC. I mean, there were some things that I knew, but to bring the whole thing together holistically and look at public health in the way Way to Wellville helped me, I had never done that before. And so as it relates to that, social determinants to health became a hot spot for me. It was something that I became really passionate about, really wanted to understand. It's something that I had always talked about, but never knew it had a name. I never knew it was called social determinants to health. And so through that work, we were able really to start to look at a more holistic framework, if you will, to really be able to look at trauma and the effects of trauma and how that affects communities and the outcomes of the children there. I've gotten led to a lot of good information to help me understand. The Deepest Well is a book that I've read that really helped me be able to understand the health outcomes of our children and how they're affected and how that affects then in turn their education. And so just the whole world of public health really opened up to me. So after I got done being the mayor, it was kind of like that was just a natural fall for me. It was the next natural logical step for me was to delve into something in public health. So I'm all about family and just, I believe strong families equal strong communities. And so one of the areas in public health that really took my interest was when we looked at the maternal birth weight or the birth weight and the maternal health of Black women as far as childbirth. And so that was really interesting me. So currently I'm actually becoming a certified doula so that I can delve more into the work to understand why those numbers are what I'm all about why. And I just want to understand that. So currently, as it works with, public health, that's what I'm doing. I'm really looking at that. And so when we understand, even as it relates to COVID, Black people are very communal. We're very connected to one another. So the whole idea of us having to be away or be separated, it's not kind of gonna work. But then when you lay on top just the health of Black people in general, because of the stress of racism, because of all those things, so the high blood pressure rates, the heart rates, and all those things layered on top of each other, COVID was kind of because it attacks weak immunes. And so that's one of those things, as far as public health, we need to continue to look at. But I don't believe until those social determinants to health are addressed in a real way, and we look at the systemic issues behind those, we're not going to get it, and we're going to continue to see the outcomes. And so it's interesting, right? It's one of those things where COVID has kind of shown us what was kind of under the surface anyway.
Right. Let's go back just a quick minute for some of the people may not know what a doula is. Could you please elaborate on that?
Absolutely. Thank you for asking. So a doula is an advocate. for the birthing partner or the parent. So a doula is able to be there to provide comfort to mom and the partner, to be an advocate for the mom's voice when the mom is not in a position probably to speak for herself. But the doula is more of an advocate or comfort giver to the mom during times of childbirth. Not just childbirth, so you can be a postpartum doula as well. So we call it the fourth trimester, where you're able to help mom and the baby connect, to help with breastfeeding issues, help bond in the families. So, I'm looking at both those certifications, both birth and postpartum as well. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. So
thank you.
Let's explore a little bit more of these social determinants of health that you've observed, and how might we start to address them both, individually and as a systematically?
Quite honestly, the whole piece, when you look at racism, it has to start with you taking a deep look into your own self to acknowledge I have some isms, right? To acknowledge that I have some implicit biases that need to be dealt with, and to begin to deal with those. I strongly believe we need to create a safe space for those conversations to be had. So, because it's going to take people who have power to get them comfortable to a place to release that power. That's how racism, that's how true diversity works. And so I tell people all the time, right, when we have the conversation about diversity and inclusion, so it happens when, if you invite me to the party, now you can become diverse. So if you invite me to a party, we're diverse. You ask me to dance, right? Now you're including me. There's inclusion. When you allow me to lead the dance, that's a totally different realm, right? And so I really believe that we're going to have to get to a point where people in power are allowing other people like me to lead the dance, and then we'll get to some outcomes. But when we look at health, racism is a stress. And the fact that our government, our state government, has taken a stance to declare it as a public health issue, I commend them, because it actually is. That is what it is. It kills silently in a way that many people don't understand, and I used to share it with people all the time, right? Before I leave the house, sometimes as a Black woman, my hair being natural is sometimes hard for other people to get with. It's not professional enough, but I have to process that before I leave my house. I have to process the fact that I'm going to be the only Black in this situation. I have to process this. So by the time I get to a particular situation, my blood pressure is probably elevated. So the fact that we have hypertension, high blood pressure, the fact that we have diabetes, these things are all, I believe, connected in some way, shape, form to racism. And the things that the Black people in this country have to endure just for being in the skin we're in, quite honestly. So, we have to be able to look at race, the economic empowerment of our people. There are so many facets, but the systemic issue of race that perpetuates through every area of our being, of our existence, through housing, through criminal justice and how our people are policed, every area of our existence is permeated with it. And so there has to be some healing. I could go on about that all day, Gloria. So I'm just jump in because
and so many of us could, but I wanted to focus on you. There's something that you could talk about to maybe young parents, and you have a son, right?
I do, yeah. Yep, I actually have 3 children, and so I have a 30-year-old, a 23-year-old, and then my 12-year-old.
Right. Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about what it's like, particularly with your 12-year-old, and talking to them about what's going on now, if you don't mind, particularly if you put the public health hat on that you're focusing on?
Oh, absolutely. So when we look at it, my husband and I actually chose to homeschool my 23-year-old. We pulled him out of school in roughly 2nd grade. So the truth of the matter is we had to have a conversation with him at 9 years old about being the only and what that's like. Now, some people say, well, you stripped him of his innocence, but the truth of the matter is my son needed to understand that at some point he wasn't going to be seen as a cute little boy. He was going to be a Black man. And that was a different world for him to exist in. And so we had to have this conversation with him, like I said, at 9. My son now, Preston, he, because of my position as mayor, he's had a very different lens as it relates to his police officers. But the most recent incidents have even made Preston start to look at his friends differently, the police officers that he knows, because in his mind, he just can't understand it. Like, it doesn't make sense to him why they would do that. And so, you know, it's really tough as a mom. And this is what I tell people, like, it's tough as a mom of Black men, of Black boys, to encourage them in a way to be strong in who they are, but yet have them concede or to back up on who they are because it could get them hurt, right? And so it's tough, Gloria. Like, there are days when I don't know how to answer his questions that he has. There are days when I can't deal with it anymore, and I just want to fade to black, right? And so it's tough. But my advice to parents would be, face it, have the real conversations with your kids, be vulnerable. If you don't know how to answer, let them know, you know what, mom doesn't know that one. I can't help you with that one. Let's figure it out and find somebody who can help you figure it out. And so that's why it's imperative that we need each other through this process. Because some of us are going to have answers and some of us are not. It's hard. It's hard though, right? And I can tell you that during this time, I've dealt with some blood pressure issues where I haven't before. You know, the compound of COVID and having to be quarantined and me, you know, being at home and, you know, and then this comes on top of that. It's kind of like, yeah, right. Am I eating well? Probably not, because the junk food makes me feel better, right? And so it's just the compound of so much of it. And so I tell people all the time, being Black in America is real. It's real. And so again, I'm excited to see where the whole idea, I'm done with symbolism though, quite honestly, Gloria. And so I really want our elected officials to take the idea that racism is a public health issue and really move on that, because it's truth. It's truth. The trauma that we experience in some of our communities, it's real. And so I don't want that to be just symbolism because of the recent events. And I really want us to immobilize ourselves to hold people accountable now. So that ruling is not just for show, it's not just for conversation, but that we really get behind people to hold them accountable to get some things done. I'm sorry. Okay.
No. Don't apologize. I'm just trying to figure out how to phrase my next question, going back to parents and children. What would you want to say to white parents and parents of white children, you know, how they might help their children understand what's going on?
Absolutely. It's not, I mean, and this has been one of the things that's been really tough, because my 23-year-old, quite honestly, is dealing with it a little different than I have my 12-year-old. And so I've been taking a lot of time, my husband and I, in helping our boys process all of this. And so I actually had a white friend that reached out and basically was like, listen, I know you're hurting, but I need you to do this. Help me understand how to help. Like, and I could understand her heart. And this is one of the things I say, Gloria, right? Because I knew her heart, I knew her intent was well. But because we had a relationship, she could hear me when I said, I can't help you with this right now. Like, I need to focus right here on me. I can't answer your questions. I can't be your Black girl with the answer. I can't. Right. And so I had to empower myself to be okay with that. But I also had to empower her to say, listen, right. It's not just about you. The reason that you could come to me and ask a question was as a result of your privilege. right? And so to kind of help her through that. And so I'm fortunate to be able to have white friends who I talk to their sons, and my sons are able to talk to their sons, and they're able to understand and to agree or disagree. And we do this thing where it's like we call it out. And I have to be honest, like I have been challenged in the recent months to start looking at, because we've all been domesticated and socialized in a way that our lens is sometimes tweaked wrong. And I've actually been challenged and called out to say, Kim, are you looking through a white supremacist lens? Right? And then it's like, I stop and I have to think and really analyze like, oh yeah, I could see how that could be construed. Right? So let's back up and let's relook at that. Right. And so there are all that we all, again, right, those biases we have that we don't realize we have. But my suggestion to the white parents is be able to have the conversation that this is a different world. Be vulnerable. I don't understand it all, but we're got to figure it out. We know enough to know that this isn't right. Right. Because right now, I would say, honestly, we're looking at a couple different pandemics. COVID is one, but humanity is another. We've gotten so far away from that. And so when we can stop and just look and say, is this right to treat somebody this way based on their skin? Is that right or is it wrong? When we can honestly take a look at that and answer that question, I think that's where it starts, is to be able to have that honest conversation with your child. Back to basics, humanity is under attack.
Well, thank you. Is there anything else you'd like to say regarding both either your governmental experience or the public health before we finish off?
So one of the things that I think I would like to close in saying is just that each of us has a responsibility to humanity, to treat people well, to love people in spite of their differences. And to understand that we're not all the same. We're at a very vulnerable time in our societies, and we need each other to get through it. Black folks are going to need white folks. White folks are going to need Black folks. We're going to need our brown, our Latina brothers and sisters. Like all of us are going to need each other to be able to build relationships, to be able to understand one another, to be able to come together in spite of our differences. There's more that we have in common than what we have apart. And so we're just going to have to, we got to do better. Our young people are watching us. Our babies are watching us. You know, I saw a picture earlier where there was a little white boy hugging a little Black kid, and he was crying because they had been out of school and away from each other so long. So what happened to that innocence, right? And we have to be honest about that. So I would implore people to challenge yourself, to learn more, to read more, to understand, find people, ask questions, have honest dialogue and conversations, because when we come out on the other side of this, there's gonna be a need for some people who are girded up and ready, because the fight is gonna be there. This is just the tip of the iceberg, I believe. And so we all have a responsibility if we wanna see it get better. So I think that would be it.
Yeah, thank you so very much, Kim. I really, really appreciate your views and your insights. And I'll just go back to one thing that you said, that it's up to each of us to educate ourselves rather than relying on our Black brothers and sisters to educate us.
Mm-hmm.
So
absolutely.
So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. And again, right, there are plenty of resources out there. Your organization has plenty of resources you can help people with, plenty of trainings that you can take, but go into those situations with an open mind and open heart, ready to receive and be willing to change. Right.
I mean, and what you were saying is a perfect introduction to our summit. We have the summit every year. We've had it for almost 20 years, and it's going to be July 21st, and it's going to be a virtual summit.
Oh,
so,
wow.
Yeah, so because last year we had almost 700 people, but we gathered in person. This year it will be virtual, but we still will have two great keynote speakers and 5 or 6 breakout sessions in the morning and in the afternoon. And just because it's virtual doesn't mean that you won't have an opportunity to network with people, because we're building that into the whole process. So if you want information on that, what you need to do is go to our website, ethnicdiversity.org, and click on Register for Summit. It will tell you all about our summit and the speakers, and you can just get right in there and register. Price is $65 for a ticket, or if you want a recording of all the other sessions to view later, then it's a total of $85. This is the way that this helps us carry on our work throughout the year. So this is one of our major sources of revenue. So I really would appreciate it if you're able to attend Summit, and please spread the word to your friends. So thank you for watching. Thank you so much. We are lining up our next guest, but we will be skipping next Wednesday, July 1st, because of the holiday. So our next guest will be on July 8th. So thank you again. You will be able to find this live stream event on our website, on our Facebook Live page, and on our YouTube Live channel, LEDA Ethnic Diversity. And to link to those, just go on our website and you'll be able to find them through there. Thank you so much. Take care.